Hey guys, Nolan Sawatzky from the Manitoba Wildlife Federation. So this is the first video in my new series, Learn to Fish. So I'm pretty much brand new to fishing. I've fly fished occasionally over the years, but I know nothing about shore fishing or anything like that. So this summer I'm going to be coming out with a bunch of videos on if you're just getting into fishing, learning the basics. And yeah, so this is the first video in that series, and I was able to go to Selkirk and interview Lee and Anna Nolden. They're the owners operators of Selkirk Smoke'n Fish, and they basically walked me through all the basics on what you need to know to get into fishing, shore fishing, and rods, reels, line, bait, that kind of stuff. So I hope you enjoy it, and then we also have more videos coming out on shore fishing in Winnipeg. And let me know in the comments if you have anything specifically that you'd like covered, and we're going to be coming out with these all throughout the summer. So if there's something you want to learn, just let us know, and we'll see what we can do for you. Big thanks to Lee and Anna Nolden for doing this interview and teaching me everything that there is to know about getting into shore fishing, and hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did.
Hi, I'm Lee Nolden. I've been fishing for a heck of a long time. Recently, my wife Lynn, myself, and Anna purchased the Smoke'n Fish store in Selkirk. But I was a guide for 35, 40 years. I fished all over northern Manitoba, and some of you may know me as an ice fisherman. I've spent a few hours out in Lake Winnipeg in the middle of the winter. What we're going to try to do today is just give you some real basics on what you need to do to fish in Manitoba. You know, if you want to take the kids out for a weekend or take the family or friends, it's such a nice activity that we're going to give you some of the basics, and it doesn't have to be complicated, and it doesn't have to be super expensive either, although it can be once you get into it. So I think the first thing we'd like to talk about would be fishing rods. Everybody needs a basic fishing rod before you go fishing. Most people are going to use a spinning rod. So you would have a reel like this that would attach on the bottom, and the guides are on here. And one thing people ask us all the time in the store is, oh heck, I want to reel with my other hand. Almost all the spinning reels that you buy now, if you take this out, you can switch it to either hand, so it'll be more comfortable and feel more natural for you. What you want to look for is like a nice medium to medium heavy rod, 6.5 feet. You don't have to get real goofy on those. You know, rods and reels, it's like golfing or just about any other hobby. You can spend a little bit or you can spend a lot. So a typical price point would be anywhere from $40, $50, $60. You know, you can spend $700 on one reel if you want. You can spend $400 or $500 on a rod. But just to get going, for under $100, you're going to get rod, reel, and line. And I would recommend 6 to 6.5 feet. Just for most people, just it'll be a good all-around rod. And then as you do different things, as an example, if you're going to fish around here and you want to go for catfish, you're going to want something similar to this. Now, when you pull this out, if they don't know what it is, people might think you're fishing for marlin or you're going to the Gulf of Mexico or something. But this is a very typical catfishing rod, and the reason that they're very stout like this is because the catfish in Manitoba are the largest in the world, the channel cats, and you've got the best fishery in the whole world for catfish right in your backyard, right from Lockport all the way to the mouth of the Lake Winnipeg. Something else I'll mention too, for ease of storage, you go, holy smokes, how am I going to get this in to the lake? A lot of the rods now come apart, so you would have a two-piece rod. So then this one is roughly 3.5 feet. Some of the rods are one piece, two piece. Again, it's all personal preference. And you can catch catfish on the lighter rod, but heck, it takes you about 20 minutes to bring one in. And it can break lines, and you know, talking about line test, on these rods, most people are going to run an 8 to 10 pound test, which is fairly standard, not too light, not too heavy. And then all the reels have a drag system, so if you do get a bigger fish, what will happen is if he's tugging, you set your drag so that the line can go out so it doesn't snap. So you can adjust your drag here. You can adjust, and I would recommend that every time that you go fishing, give the line a pull, like before it snaps, you go, oh, that doesn't, then you loosen it up and then it'll come out, so that won't break your line. And then you just hold it up and the fish will take a run, you reel them back in, the fish will take a run, a shorter one, and eventually you get that fish in.
What's the benefit to using 8-pound or 10-pound rather than, let's say, couldn't you just put 40 on and fish for everything and that way your line would never break kind of thing? Or what's the benefit?
A person could do that. However, with most spinning reels, your line capacity would be very limited with heavy line, and it would be really hard to cast, to throw it out there. It wouldn't work properly. So typically, like with the big cat rods, a lot of the guys are going to use 30 or 40-pound test with those. And the reason they do that is so that they don't hurt the fish. When you catch the fish, you want to bring them in as quickly as you can. So with the heavier pound line, you don't exhaust the fish. There's a couple basic types of line now. One of them is monofilament. That's like the clear type. Been around for a long, long time. There's a number of different brands of it. Trilene is one, Stren's another one, and heck, everybody makes that. The other one would be some of the new braided lines, and examples of that would be like this one is Power Pro or Fireline, and there's a bunch of those too. So these tend to be a thinner diameter per strength per pound breakage. So a 10-pound test of this type of line is thinner than the Trilene, so it'll cast easier. It's a little more limp, and it's very abrasion resistant as well.
Would you have a recommendation on one or over the other?
I think, for most people's application just starting out, I would just go with the basic monofilament line. Again, like on a price point, you're looking at $6.99 versus $19.99. So I think to get going, the monofilament works perfectly well for most people, and that I would just stick with that.
Is the sight of it a factor? Like a thicker line, can fish see that?
Yeah, they can see that, and it's more of a feel too. I mean, they can actually feel that line. So like when you're fishing for catfish, we would use similar to a pickerel rig. It would have a snap on the top and then a bigger hook on the bottom. And then we would use a weight maybe like this. This weight weighs 3 ounces. So this would be typical of what we would use in the Lockport, Selkirk area. And as the fish picks up the bait, this stays on the bottom and it'll slide through so the fish doesn't see it. And typical bait for catfish, probably the best one, you get kind of a 2-for, is if you catch your own goldeye, which is a species of fish very common in the river in Winnipeg or Lockport or through Selkirk. But once you catch the bait fish, catch goldeye, you cut it up into chunks, and then you can catch the bigger catfish. Or what a lot of our people do is they use shrimp. So believe it or not, like the shrimp that you would buy at a store to eat, these are really big ones that are shell on. These work the best. So with the goldeye, you're going to use a small hook, maybe a small piece of weight, and then a bobber like this. So it's very basic. When the bobber moves or goes down, fish on, reel them in.
This is just a basic pickerel rig here. So it comes with 2 hooks here, and then you also have what's called a bell. So this is just a basic lead weight. So if you can see, it just attaches on the end with a clip. And then up at the very top, you have a swivel. So this is what you would attach to your main line, the line that's coming out of the rod. And then as well, you also have just your basic jigs. So there's button eyes, there's whirly jigs. So these guys are kind of cool because they do have like a little propeller per se. So that does get some extra movement in the water and some light infraction. And then also your classic, just a gumball jig. So these guys, they're a classic. Everybody grew up using them. They started on them.
What Anna just showed you with that pickerel rig, that's a very easy basic setup. So once you tie that on, You've got 2 hooks, you would put some type of bait on there. And typically in Manitoba, you would either use a night crawler, like a worm, something like this, or you would use a frozen salted minnow, something like this.
Is there any difference between the minnow and the worm?
There can be a difference in the type of bait, and it kind of depends on what you're fishing with and kind of what the fish want to eat that day. And one thing with the pickerel rig that Anna showed you, you could put a worm on one hook and you could put a minnow on the other hook and see what the fish want to eat that day. The other thing I'd like to mention in Manitoba, and this is really critical, people, is that we use barbless hooks in Manitoba. So any hook that you buy in any store is going to have a little barb on the end. It's very important that you pinch that down. And what that does, it allows you to release that quick, or release the fish a lot easier. It's a lot easier on the fish, but it's Manitoba law, and you must pinch your barbs. And the species of fish that you can catch close to Winnipeg, there's literally dozens of different species, but the common one would be a freshwater drum, a bullhead, carp, suckers, and of course everybody's favorite, the walleye, or as you may know it, a pickerel. Let's talk a little bit about where you can fish. It's like you can have all this stuff, but where the heck are you gonna go? We're a little bit partial to the Red River from the Lockport Dam, and there's areas to fish on either side of the river, and all the way through Selkirk and Lockport, and all the way down to the end of Main Street in Selkirk, you can shore fish. So you don't need a boat, you don't need fancy equipment, but all you need is a fishing rod and a pail and you're good to go. Inside the city there are also areas to fish. A lot of people like to fish right at the forks. So if you're looking for something to do, you've only got a couple of hours, or maybe you don't have a car, you can take a bus or walk, you can catch catfish and goldeye and bullheads, and I've heard even the occasional walleye there. The other area is that if you're going camping for the weekend or you want to go for a drive, the white shell has tremendous fishing. Lots of lakes, lots of walleyes and smallmouth bass and northern pike that are available right offshore, virtually right off the road. So some of the lures you may want to use for northern pike, if you've got people that like to cast, the pickerel rig and some of this type of fishing, it's basically you're going to throw it out, leave it sit, you're going to lean the rod up here against the stick or whatever. You're going to see a little ding ding. It's going to move a little bit, and that's going to signal your bite. But if you get a little more depth and you like to cast, you can use lures like this or spinners, and they make a million of them. But you can tie one of those on. This type of lure is designed, well, for 2 things. One, you would cast it out and just reel it back. It'll swing in the water, and then what you're hoping for is a fish goes, oop, there's something good, boom, and then you reel them in like that. Okay, one thing I'd like to talk about too that's very important is recently Manitoba changed the way that you buy your fishing license. They've gone paperless now, and everything is available online. So you can virtually get your fishing license online. Currently though, you must have a printed copy of it, so you're gonna have to print one off. If that's not available to you, there are some retailers, some of the Canadian Tires, I believe Fish and Hole, Cabela's, Lake in the Woods Sports, some of those retailers will actually help you get a license and print it off for you. But there are some changes coming in the regulations. So basically anybody between 16 and 65 needs to have a valid license. And then we do have limits on different species of fish. So if you plan on keeping them, and if you have a really good day, be sure to check your regulations so that you're not keeping either fish that are too large, too small, or too many. So basically, all you need to go fishing is a fishing license if you're over 16, and a place to go. Check out, take a drive, come out to Lockport, go to the Forks, so you've got that. Basic fishing rod, a couple of pickerel rigs, a couple of jigs, and some bait, and maybe a pail to put your fish in and to sit in, and you're good to go. Okay, I'm going to show you just the real basic knot called the trilene knot. We're going to put it through. We're going to twist it around 6 or 7 times. And actually, you can do this too much and it's not good. Then you've got your loose end and you've got your end here that's kind of open. You put that through that, and then I come up through the middle here, and then we're just gonna pull it tight. And then you may want to also just wet this. It'll tighten up a little bit more for you. But that's a real basic knot, and for most lines, for most monofilament line, that'll work just fine.